What is going on, guys? David, aka Reconjack here, excited to be bringing you my Red Season 5 draft analysis. Now, I know I haven't done one of these in a long time, I haven't uploaded in a long time, so if I stumble over my words or if I pause for a little bit, just bear with me. I'm not used to speaking to my computer anymore, so just give me some time to work this out. Anyways, I've got an exciting team to be bringing y'all. Definitely one of my favorite teams I've ever drafted in terms of viability, in terms of balance, in terms of sheer power. I think this is the best team that I've ever drafted, or one of them. But let's let you be the judge of that while we hop into our first Mon, which in round one, well, to preface this, I was the 12th man out of 12 participants in my draft pool, so I was the last pick, but I did have the wheel, which gave me a unique opportunity to really synergize my picks as best as I could. So with the first wheel pick, I really wanted something. I really wanted to grab a core that I could build around. So you all know that a couple seasons ago, I drafted Excadrill as my first pick, and I really wasn't able to build well around it. I was still kind of new to the format, and I also missed out on a Sand Setter. Unfortunately, Tyranitar and Hippowdon were picked before I could grab it. This time, though, with the advent of Gigalith, I knew that even if I wasn't able to grab T-Tar or Hippowdon, I could dip into the lower tier early and pick Gigalith, because that wouldn't be a typical early round pick for most people, or for anyone that wasn't using a sand team. So that was my fallback. So with our first pick, I decided to pick up Guaca, the Excadrill. So let's just jump into Excadrill real quick. Y'all know what he does, but we're going to go over it real fast. It's a ground and steel type. I see that I misspelled type here, but oh well, we'll work with it. It's got 3 great abilities in Mold Breaker, Sand Force, and Sand Rush. Now, there's only 2 that I'm really going to be using at any given moment. That's going to be obviously Sand Rush and Mold Breaker. It's got a fantastic attack stat at 135. And a pretty good HP stat at 110. That's nothing to laugh at. Its defenses are subpar, but with that HP stat, it is possible to run a bulky Excadrill, which we'll get into a bit later. Its speed tier, it sits at 88, which is kind of awkward. It's pretty slow outside of Sand, unfortunately, and I've had experience using it without Sand, and I didn't really like it as much. But in Sand, this thing is a complete monster. It's just capable of sweeping through teams by itself. So let's hop into some of the roles that Excadrill takes on. First and foremost, obviously, it is a Sand Sweeper. So with that Sand Rush ability, if I can get Sand up, this thing doubles its speed and just becomes an immediate threat to any team, and it's very hard to switch in on, especially because it has access to Swords Dance. So if I'm able to set up a Swords Dance and get the +2 attack, there's nothing that wants to switch in to an Earthquake or to an Iron Head or to a coverage move. So that's the primary role of Excadrill, but it also can function as a Stealth Rocker. So Stealth Rocker, obviously, this would be more of a bulky set, or if I felt like I could set up rocks on my opponent's switch and still be an offensive kind of variant, that's also an option as well. Also, obviously, Excadrill is one of the premier rapid spinners in the format. Mega Blastoise is also arguably the #1 spinner, but in my opinion, Excadrill is the #1 spinner. So this is my first form of hazards and hazard removal, which is really cool to pick up. It's also an electric immunity, which means that it stops that volt switch, stops the momentum from any electric type that might be trying to like gain the upper hand for my opponent. And this is the start of my Dragon Fairy Steel Core. And to complement Excadrill on the wheel, I decided to pick up Latios. So Skywalker the Latios, it's a Dragon Psychic type with the Levitate ability. It's got very good special attack, pretty good bulk, definitely on the special side. Its defense, its physical defense is alright. Its HP stat is also alright, and its speed stat is fantastic, sitting at 110. So Latios is my Z captain. So in this season of Red, we were only able to draft one or elect one Z captain from the previous two last season. Normally, or my original thought was to make Excadrill my Z captain, but I figured I wanted something that had natural speed to be able to take on that role, so I wasn't relying on like a Sand Rush offense to also have that, to fill that Z role. So like things like Excadrill, better off with like a Life Orb. Things like Latios also can use that Life Orb, also wants to use like Culver Berry sometimes, maybe Leftovers, but as a Z captain sitting at base 110 speed with base 130 special attack, this is a fantastic choice. Z Draco Meteor is absolutely absurd. There are also plenty of coverage moves that Latios gets, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, stuff like that, where I can really abuse the Z Crystal on this Mon. And that's just the special side of things. If I decide to run a physical set, then I could abuse things like Z Earthquake. So this is definitely a very good Z captain for the team. It's another source of hazard removal, obviously. With Defog, this is one of the best defoggers in the game. So I now have like two solid forms of hazard removal, and this one can also set up. So on the special side, it has Calm Mind. On the physical side, it has Dragon Dance. So not only does this mon hit hard, but it's nothing to sleep on. It can increase its speed. I could run Dragon Dance and a special set just to increase the speed stat and have that special offensive presence. It's also got reliable recovery in Recover. It's got support moves such as Trick, T-Wave, and Memento. Also, Z Memento is a great move that is legal in this league. Another big reason why I picked it up, and the primary reason why I picked it up, is it complements Excadrill's weaknesses very well. It's got that Levitate ability, which means it's immune to the ground types that Excadrill struggles with. It's immune to the fighting types that Excadrill doesn't want to face. It's immune to the, or not immune, it resists those fighting types. It resists the fire types that Excadrill doesn't want to face. It resists the water types that Excadrill doesn't want to face. And in return, Excadrill takes on those fairies that bother Latios. So all in all, this was like a really good, really strong start to our draft. Rolling into the next wheel picks, I decided to dip down into tier 2 and grab my tier 2 mon, or my first one, and that's going to be Rotom Wash. Now this is kind of a, let's call it a non-traditional tier 2 pick. So Rotom Wash has kind of fallen off in terms of usage, especially on the ladder, but this is not the ladder. This is draft league format, and an electric type. Well, we'll get into it. So this is Wind Cycle, the Rotom Wash. It's the electric and water type Pokemon with the Levitate ability. It's got really great defensive stats and a pretty good special attack stat, sitting at 105. It's middle of the ground speed, so nothing too crazy here. but it's another ground immunity. So just again complements Excadrill so well. It eats up those water hits for Excadrill, eats up those fire hits for Excadrill. It's immune to those ground attacks for Excadrill. It eats up ice type attacks aimed at Latios. So an electric type that is immune to ground is huge, and there are only a few Pokemon that can do it, and most of them, or a couple of them, are in tier 1. So those being like Thundee-I, Thundee-T, Zapdos, obviously are a bit more valued, but I think this is a highly underrated tier 2 Mon. I think it did drop down from tier 1 because of it not seeing much use, because just things were better than it in tier 1. But this is a great tier 2 pick for us. So obviously it doesn't gain any as a water type, it doesn't gain any weaknesses by taking on that electric type because of its ability Levitate. And as electric type, it does take on that grass weakness, and it is now neutral to electric types. However, Latios obviously has resistances for this Mon, so it takes on those grass types, and can take on those electric types as well, as can Excadrill. So this is our first Mon in our Volt Turn core, which is awesome to have. It also is a water type that has access to Will-O-Wisp, which I love. I love Will-O-Wisp. Will-O-Wisp so much. It's such a good move. It also has T-Wave, so this Mon has I think it has the triple status. So it can Will-O-Wisp, it can T-Wave, it can Toxic. That is huge. It can also Trick. So let's say I want to run a Choice Spec set, or let's say I want to run a Choice Scarf set. I can trick that onto something like a wall. I can trick that onto something that I just don't want setting up on me, and I can nullify those Mons with Rotom. So this is a fantastic Mon. Unfortunately, it doesn't have that reliable recovery that you look for in a bulky water. It does have access to Pain Split. I could run a Chesto Resto set, which was pretty popular back in the day. I just think that as a tier 2 pick, that Rotom Wash complements my first 2 picks so well. Very happy with it. I never used it before in draft format, so excited to see how it does. But let's hop into our 4th pick, and for our 4th pick, we're actually picking up our Mega. And that is going to be Unzip the Mega Banette. So a lot of you might be thinking, like, why would you want to pick up Mega Banette? It's not the best Mega, but the way that our league works is there are different tiers for different Megas, and Mega Banette is a tier 3 Mon, alongside of things like Mega Audino, Mega Steelix, Mega Glalie, and I think a couple Mega Abomasnow, maybe a couple other things. I really wanted a tier 3 Mega because it allows for better free picks. So with a tier 3 Mega, I can pick up to 2 tier 1s and 2 tier 2s, which is huge. I was looking at Mega Audino, but that got picked before me, which is fine, because there's still plenty of fairies to go around. Mega Banette, though, I think as a tier 3 Mega, for our team specifically, is amazing. So it does have that, it is a ghost type with the ability Prankster. It sits on an enormous 165 attack stat and decent defenses. Not the best HP stat, but workable defenses and a usable special attack stat. Not the fastest Mon, but that's not what we're really using it for. It shines as a support Mon. So it's got that priority support in Will-O-Wisp. It's got Trick Room. It's got Destiny Bond. It can boost its own defense with Cotton Guard. It also has priority attacks in Shadow Sneak and Sucker Punch. So this Mon can do a lot of things to help support the rest of our team. It can take down Um, it can take down like a troublesome Mon with priority Destiny Bond. It can set up Trick Room. Let's say I want to run for some of our Mons that are a bit slower, which you'll see in a bit. Let's say I want to run that room for those Mons. This Pokemon can definitely set it up because it has that priority for it. Let's say I need to burn a physical threat. Will-O-Wisp incoming. If I'm worried that it's gonna miss, I can just Cotton Guard up first. Then the priority is huge. Priority in any game is amazing. So this Pokemon has Stab, Shadow Sneak. It has Sucker Punch for just as coverage. It also acts as a spin blocker for us. So spin blocking is huge. That means I can set up whatever hazards I want, and they're gonna have to defog them away. It's a fighting immunity, which is also really good for Excadrill. It's also a normal immunity, which is just good in general. It's not like specifically for our team. We're not super weak to normal types, but it is helpful. This Mon also can take on those ghost types that threaten Latios because it does have priority Shadow Sneak. So overall it's just really good support for our team, and it allows me to get better free picks, which you'll see in a bit. So we're gonna move on to our 5th pick. The start of the next wheel was just a tip Amoonguss. So we're dipping into tier 3 here for both of these picks, and I think this was a quality pick. I was kind of looking at Roserade, I believe was tier 3 as well. It might have been tier 2, I don't remember, but I'm really somebody sniped that before me. I think it was Steven, but I'm really happy with this pick. So Amoonguss is the grass poison type with the abilities Effect Spore and Regenerator. It's got a pretty big HP stat at 114, and the rest of its stats they're like middle of the road. It's got pretty good defenses. It's got like abysmal speed at 30, obviously, but we don't need speed on this. This is more of like a wall. So what this Mon does for us, first and foremost, it's the start of our, it's not the start of our, it is the continuation of our Fire, Water, Grass core along with Rotom. This Mon is just amazing. It's got that Regenerator ability alongside of Reliable Recovery and Synthesis. And being a Sand team, any grass type that has Synthesis it's only gonna be healing, I believe, 25% of their health instead of the typical 50%. But alongside Regenerator, this Mon can switch in and out and use Synthesis to gain back a lot of its health. So this Mon isn't too worried about being in the sand. It eats up water hits for Excadrill. It eats up grass hits for Rotom Wash. And it also is an electric resist, which I really like. Unfortunately, it's not a ground resist, which is nice to have in your grass type, but that's okay. We already have 2 levitators on the team. We're planning on adding some more ways to deal with ground types, so that's not a big deal. It soaks up T-Spikes, which is huge. Granted, our Rapid Spinner is immune to Toxic, and our Defogger is it's immune to Toxic and Toxic Spikes, and our Defogger levitates, so it's not affected by T-Spikes. So those, in terms of removal, are also good to get rid of T-Spikes, but this just absorbs them, so it just sits on them and they disappear. That's great. It's also a fighting resist for Excadrill. Again, as you can see, I'm really trying to support that Sand Rush offense. So something I really like about Amoonguss, which everybody hates, is that 100% accurate Spore. So just putting things to sleep is going to be huge. My opponents are going to be forced to run things like safety goggles, or else they're going to have a Pokemon that goes to sleep. If they try to bring in their grass type to soak up the Spore, I can just hit them with a nice Sludge Bomb on the following turn. So Amoonguss is really good, and it pairs excellently with the next pick that we're gonna be taking, which is the tier 3 Fox the Talonflame. It's a fire flying type with the abilities Flame Body and Gale Wings. It has very average stats outside of its speed tier, which is a blistering 126. So Talonflame is a very underrated mon this gen with the nerf to Gale Wings, but in my opinion it is still extremely good. Priority Brave Bird at full health is still so good. Having that flying type Pokemon for access to Flying Stab is just amazing, because a lot of people don't really draft Flying Resist nowadays. Those Pokemon are hard to come by. So this Pokemon also completes our Fire, Water, Grass Spore with alongside a Rotom and a Moongus. So obviously this Pokemon is weak to things like Electric, which a Moongus deals with. It's weak to Water, which a Moongus and Rotom deal with. It eats up those grass attacks that Rotom struggles against. It eats up fire attacks that a Moongus doesn't want to deal with. And a lot of people look at this Pokemon and all they see is like hyper offense, priority Brave Bird, set up with Swords Dance. But this Pokemon can also function as a bulky mon. So it has Will-O-Wisp, it has Roost, it has Bulk Up. You can run a really fat Talonflame, just completely nullify physical threats. And it also has access to U-Turn, which creates a Volt-Turn core, a really good one at that with Rotom Wash. Anyways, so it can set up, it can do big damage, it can U-Turn out for momentum, it can really cripple physical threats. It's got that reliable recovery. It's another ground immunity. It's another fighting resist. It pairs really well with our team so far. I'm really liking it. So let's hop into our next pick, which is the start of the next wheel in the draft, and that's going to be Tyranitar. So you might ask yourself why I waited so long for this. That's because you gotta look at what other people are drafting as well. And a lot of people had used up their tier 1 picks, and there was a couple teams left that could have picked up Tyranitar around the time I took it, but it didn't look like they would, but it was an option for them, and I really wanted Tyranitar over Hippowdon, over Gigalith, and this time I decided to pick it up. So we're going with Reptar, the Tyranitar, a dark rock type with the abilities Sandstream and Unnerve. This Pokemon has fantastic base stats. I'm not even going to go over them. Its worst thing is its speed at 61, which is kind of cool actually. It outspeeds those base 60s, which you see a lot. But overall, this mon is just absurd. By itself, it is so good. It has access to Stealth Rocks. It's our second rocker on the team. It has access to setup within a Dragon Dance. It is a Pursuit Trapper, so it's a Psychic Immunity. It's a Pursuit Trapper. It can phase with Dragon Tail. It can also even Thunder Wave opponents, which a lot of people don't really know about that. And it sets up Sand for us. That is the big part. It pairs with Excadrill. It lets Excadrill be that Sand Sweeper. It is another fighting weakness, but I think that we have covered that so well so far. In four of our previous picks being either immune or resisting fighting types. So I think we're good on that front. What do you even say about Tyranitar? It has excellent coverage moves. It can run physical sets, it can run special sets. It's just so powerful. And that rock typing or dark stab is great. Rock is also really good. And the rock weakness, like the plethora of rock weaknesses, is kind of it's not nullified, but it's lessened a bit because in sand, I believe a rock type special defense gets a 1.5 times boost, something like that. So its natural bulk is just increased by its own ability. Maybe some links I want to run Unnerve, and that's also a very viable option because those berries are huge in League format. So that's another viable ability. What else to say about this? This is a flying resist for Amoonguss. Also, Rotom is too, I forgot to mention that. This is a fire resist for Amoonguss. It's a fire resist for Excadrill. And there's not much else to say about Tyranitar. Everybody knows what Tyranitar is, what it's capable of since Gen 2. It's just been a fantastic one. So I'm not even going to keep talking about it. We're going to move right on to the next pick that I paired up with Tyranitar, and that is going to be Sylveon. Gift wrap the Sylveon. I was really surprised that this came to me. I was prepared to grab something not worse per se, but worse. I was prepared to start looking at Primarina, Comfy, which actually got picked before me instead of Sylveon. Sylveon is an excellent mon to have, and I'm so happy that it came down to me. It's that pure fairy type with, who cares about Q-Charm? It's got Pixelate, it's got a pretty good HP stat, it's got a solid special attack stat at 110, it's got huge special defense at 130. This Pokemon is fantastic. It can run a spec set with Hyper Voice and Psyshock and a Hidden Power coverage move, usually Hidden Power Fire. It can have Baton Pass to get up out of there for momentum. It can set up with Calm Minds, and very importantly for our team, it can function as a cleric. So it has access to Wish Pass. It can also use Heal Bell to get rid of any burns that my physical threats might take on, or paralysis. It also has access to dual screens, which is that's really good. That allows some of my threats to set up easier. It's also a dragon immunity, so usually your steel types function as like a sort of a dragon check, but Excadrill is pretty frail, and I don't really want it to be taking coming in on a Draco Meteor per se, or really any other dragon attack. So this is huge. It pairs up really well. It's yet another fighting resist for Tyranitar for Excadrill, and it pairs really well with Excadrill because Excadrill takes on those steel types and poison types that trouble Sylveon. This is just a really good support mon for the team, and can also surprisingly be pretty offensive with stuff like Calm Mind. So I really like this pick, really happy that it came to me, really surprised it came to me. And now we're going to start dipping in. Well, that also finishes our Dragon Fairy Steel core. So our two big cores in Dragon Fairy Steel and Fire Water Grass are now complete, and now it's time to start picking our lower tier stuff. I think I have one free pick left at this point, but before I pick up that free pick, I'm gonna be drafting Bugatti the Excelgor. So as of yet, I only have access to Stealth Rocks as hazards. I'm not really one for hazard stack. I prefer a more hyper offensive approach to teams, but I'm trying to branch out, and Excelgor it's an amazing spiker because of its 145 speed stat. So with Sticky Hold, it can hold on to whatever item. It's not like Knockoff isn't going to get rid of whatever item I have on it, or I could run Unburden and do some shenanigans with that to make it even faster, which is actually pretty viable. It has a pretty good special attack stat at 100. Like, that's nothing to sleep on here, and it has really good coverage too. So this makes an excellent spiker for a few reasons. Obviously that natural speed is going to allow me to set up. It's going to allow me to set up fairly easily, and it also has access to Final Gambit. So if it's early game and my opponent doesn't really know the set that I have, they risk the chance of me clicking Final Gambit and just obliterating one of their mons right away. So they might switch out into something a bit bulkier, which allows me to set up those spikes, which is really, really cool. It has access to knockoff, so I forgot to mention Mega Banette also has access to knockoff. This is our second knockoff user, which is really, really good in League in any format, to be honest. But sitting at base 145 speed means that we're most likely going to be getting rid of an item on my opponent, which is really, really good. It has U-turn, which just adds to that Volt Turn core. It has priority in Water Shuriken, which was made special this gen, I believe, which with that 100 special attack stat, hey, I'm not complaining. Something I also really like about this Pokemon is it has access to Sandstorm. So this is a manual sand setter for our team, and sitting at that base speed means that I'll be able to set it up more often than not if I need to. I won't always carry Sandstorm on this Mon, but it does give me that fallback option just in case I need to sack T-Tar and I can't get up sand anymore with that. So I'm really happy with this pick. It really complements my team well. Just adding to our natural speed tier is nice because I think we have Talonflame and then we have Latios, but then the rest of our stuff is actually pretty slow, especially outside of sand. So this is just nice to have. And we're gonna be pairing it with our last free pick, Conkeldurr. So Cinderella the Conkeldurr, the fighting type, with 3 amazing abilities: Guts, Iron Fist, and Sheer Force. It has a good HP stat at 105, an enormous attack stat at 145, pretty good defense at 95. Its special side isn't so great, and its speed is abysmal. But this Pokemon is fantastic, and I do believe this is another Pokemon that dropped from Tier 1 to Tier 2. I'm not exactly sure, but being in Tier 2, this was a quality pick. It gives me Status Absorb, which is the biggest reason why I wanted it. So at the time of this pick, I was considering 3 different Mons. I was considering Conkeldurr, I was considering Mienshao, and I was considering Heracross. Heracross, I believe, it's somewhere around base 80 speed, something like that. It also has Guts, but I didn't want it for the additional weaknesses that it has, such as Fire. They're both weak to flying, so all 3 fighting types are weak to flying, so that wasn't really a consideration. But that quad weakness to flying is kind of annoying. The fire weakness is especially why I didn't want it. So I got rid of Heracross pretty fast. So it was between Conkeldurr and Mienshao. Mienshao obviously has that nice base 105 speed. It has regen and reckless, which is really cool. It has U-turn as well, which is also really nice. But I figured that Conkeldurr, just with that Guts ability, was just huge. Being able to make my opponent really reconsider pressing Will-O-Wisp on things like Excadrill, or pressing Toxic on things like Latios or Rotom, or bringing it's a T-Spike's deterrent. Conkeldurr is just really good at stopping my opponent from pressing priority moves. Like even things like Thunder Wave, I'm okay with being Thunder Wave. I have shit speed anyway, so the worst thing that can happen is I get fully paralyzed. And hey, if I need to get rid of that, I have Sylveon in the back. So Conkeldurr with that Guts boosted attack is just a huge threat. If I don't want to run Guts, it has Iron Fist, it has Sheer Force, it has amazing coverage moves. It's also got setup in bulk up. It's got priority and Mach Punch. It has knockoff. This is just a very threatening Mon, and especially if I decide that I'm going to run that Trick Room that I was talking about earlier with Mega Manette, this Pokemon just comes in and just destroys Fates. I really love Conkeldurr. It deals with bulky Steel types, which, looking at my team, outside of Excadrill, I don't really deal with too well. Usually the Fire type helps with that, but Talonflame is pretty weak without a boost, and it hits on the physical side, and a lot of Steel types are physically bulky. So this Pokemon can set up on Steel types and just Drain Punches them into oblivion, and it also recovers its health back with that. So this is another good option for getting rid of those bulky Steel types outside of Excadrill. Not much more to say about this Pokemon. Just a very strong pick and very happy to have it on my team. Last but not least, we are going to grab our tier 5 pick, and that is going to be Rough Life the Stoutland. So I didn't really know what I wanted to pick in tier 5. There's a few things I could have grabbed. I was thinking about memeing with Kukumbuku, but I couldn't bring myself to not pick Stoutland just because I'm running that sand offense, and this gives me another Sand Rush abuser. And I've run into instances in the past where I'll be running like a sand team, and then my Excadrill is gone, and now all of a sudden like my sand isn't viable anymore. But with this in the back, I have another immediate threat. It has base 110 attack, which is nothing to laugh at. So let's throw a Life Orb on that. Let's throw a Choice Band on that. What's coming in on return plus coverage? What's coming in on that? Nothing wants to come in on that. It's got Intimidate if I want to run a bulkier variant. Scrappy isn't that useful because it does have coverage like Crunch, but it's an option. It's even got things like Thunder Wave, so a lot of my Pokemon have access to that Yellow Magic, and Yellow Magic, as you all should know, is very, very, well, it's a shit tactic, but it works. It's also a Ghost immunity, so up until this point, I didn't have a Ghost immunity. I had a Resist in Tyranitar. I had ways to kind of deal with Ghost types with Banette's priority, but it doesn't want to switch in. Now I have a switch into Ghost types, just completely. So that was big. It does add another fighting weakness to my team, but I do have a plethora of fighting resists, so that's not really a concern of mine. This is just a quality tier 5 pick for my team. I couldn't not pick it, so here we are with Rough Life with Stoutland, and that kind of rounds out my team. So now we're going to dive into the speed tiers real quick. Obviously you have Excadrill and Stoutland on the top end of things. That's in the sand though. Then you have Excadrill sitting at like a base 145, and my slowest mon is a Moongus at base 30, and then I have like everything in between that. I have base 110, I have base 126, I have base 45s, I have base 60s, I have base 80s. So I have a very healthy spread of speed tiers. I can abuse Trick Room, I can in ways that you might not even think of. So not only do I have slow mons like Conk to abuse Trick Room, but I have mons with priority like Talonflame, which generally wouldn't do well in Trick Room, but with stuff like priority Brave Birds, now that's an option. So overall, I'm really liking the speed tiers on my team. Let's hop into the cores real quick. Obviously, my Dragon Fairy Steel core is Laddie, Sylveon, and Excadrill. Very, very solid. They complement each other very well. My Fire, Water, Grass is pretty damn bulky. Even with Talonflame, which is usually an offensive mon, as I said earlier, this is a very bulky core, and I really, really like it, and it complements a lot of my mons really well. Next, obviously, there's my sand core of Tyranitar, Excadrill, and Stoutland. I mean, that's kind of like at face value, it's just sand offense right there. And it's really fun. It's really fun to look at. It's going to be really fun to use, I hope. And another core that is less talked about, not sure too many people even kind of know about the synergy, is Fighting Dark Ghost. So it's not a like your typical core. It's not the best core, but it's another core that complements very, very well. And Conk I have Conk, Tyranitar, and Banette. Tyranitar takes on those psychic and flying types with that additional rock typing that Conk doesn't want to deal with. Conk takes on those dark types for Banette. It's just very, very powerful cores on my team, along with some support mons elsewhere. It is a very, it's looking like a very fun, a very strong, kind of balanced team. I'm usually drafting hyper offense, and there's definitely hyper offense here, but I can definitely run balance too. So I'm excited to try that out. Here's a link to my YouTube channel. You're watching this on YouTube, so you're probably watching this on YouTube, I would think. So you already know my channel, but here's a link just in case. Then there's my Twitter handle. I'll probably be putting stuff up on my Twitter. I don't really know yet what, but hey, if you want to give me a follow, that'd be cool. I know I was all over the place kind of with this analysis. I'm gonna listen to this back real quick because I did it in one take, so it probably sounds like shit. A lot of stuttering, a lot of pausing, a lot of saying the same stuff over and over again. But I hope you enjoyed, and I can't wait for the season to start off. For now, this is Reconjack signing off.